What's going on, fellow A-plussers? It's your host, Adam Perez. We're back once again with another Rings of Power review, as I'm going to go ahead and dive into episode number 7, as we wind up just getting the penultimate episode. That's right, the episode leading into the season finale that we wind up getting last Friday. We are here to certainly go ahead and break it down and, of course, give you our thoughts in regards to this episode. And remember, at the end of the day, these are just my A-plus opinions. I always want to know yours, though. Let your thoughts be known in the comment section box below. And we'll definitely continue to talk about this particular series as we get into the finale this upcoming Friday, guys. So I'm really excited for it, man. I gotta be honest. This series has truly blown me away. I've absolutely just dove into this immersive world that they've certainly created for this Amazon Prime series. And I'm personally a little bit bummed that this Friday is in fact the last episode, as we're only getting 8 episodes this season. And I was kind of under the impression that we were getting ourselves 10. I remember the showrunners talking about the idea that when they approached Amazon, they approached them for 50 hours worth of content. And I think they even mentioned we're going to be getting ourselves 5 seasons. And so I just automatically assumed 50 hours, 5 seasons, it's got to be equivalent to 10 episodes at 1 hour apiece. But to be fair, they've actually spoiled me. And maybe ruined other streaming television for me, because even though they're only giving us 8 episodes, each episode is like over an hour, like an hour and 15 minutes. It's a meaty chunk of content to really just thoroughly enjoy. It has great replay value for me personally. This is like the second time or maybe even third time I've watched this particular episode. I truly love this series, and I think they've really done an amazing job. You can see where the budget certainly has gone, and just the love for these Tolkien creations definitely shine through for me personally. But let's go ahead and get into episode number 7. We'll talk about my overall thoughts, and then I'll definitely go ahead and give you guys just a couple of characters for us to certainly talk about. Taking a step back from this episode and looking at it as a whole, I think it's just an incredible episode in regards to just seeing the aftermath of this mountain sort of explosion. It definitely felt very much like it is the turning of the tide. It kind of puts this season on notice and really gives you something to build up towards the finale. Like, I really do feel like this just changed the trajectory of maybe some storylines I certainly had in mind that they might tackle, the direction for some characters. And I think for me, the opposites, just the night and day of the people of Numenor before the explosion to post-explosion, when they just look like a completely different group of people. I mean, not only was the explosion incredible visually, but just for the people of Numenor to see them kind of go from this very regal, right, very rich, very proud people to now seeing them just disheveled and defeated and just looking like a whole different group of people. And granted, you have them mixed in with some of the Southlanders, but this explosion just rocked these people. I mean, it almost feels like people are struggling with PTSD. We have the unfortunate demise of some of the villagers, some people of Numenor. And to be quite frank, after seeing that explosion in the previous week's episode that just had levels of like Pompeii written all over it, seeing the huge ash of clouds and the fire and the smoke headed their way, I honestly thought like practically nobody was going to survive this particular event. I thought there were going to be a lot more casualties than what there were, at least for some of our main characters. But a lot of our main characters, if not all of them, survived in here. So if there was a nitpick, maybe that, just because visually it looked like hell had just risen on Earth sort of thing, and I just did not expect that many people to die. They are hinting at the idea of Isildur being dead, but I think if anything, I wouldn't be surprised if in next week's episode he winds up sort of popping up. But like, as far as casualties for the main group of people, I believe Isildur is really like the only death that we certainly have on our hands. But regardless, the people of Numenor look like they do not certainly want to be there. And so, to kind of see Elendil's a character sort of change, his whole mindset completely changing, especially knowing that he's lost his son, or is certainly under that impression. To kind of see the animosity that he holds towards Galadriel in here was pretty startling, but I definitely can't blame this guy. I mean, he's talking about, hey, listen, our ships are ready to go, the sails are up, like, why are we even talking to Galadriel when Galadriel does return at the very end of this episode? The idea that even the queen wants to certainly return, I mean, it brings Elendil to tears, and he just kind of looks at this whole endeavor certainly as a huge mistake, and just really wants to take back everything that he's done. So it is fascinating to see the course correction for Elendil here. But I think my biggest surprise out of this episode certainly comes from the Queen of Numenor sort of being more vigilant than ever, right? Like, there's a part of me that was just under the impression that she would keep that same mentality that Elendil certainly had to feel for himself, right? I mean, you have a queen now who's unfortunately blinded by trying to save some of the Southlanders inside of the collapsing firehouse. She clearly wind up getting blinded, not able to see herself. So she's definitely has paid her toll for trusting in Galadriel and to certainly come all the way out here to Middle Earth. And while there's definitely a lot of blame to certainly go around, and definitely a lot of blame that Galadriel puts on herself, that Elendil clearly puts on her as well, the queen, on the other hand, just feels like this is a resurgence, in the sense that if they thought that this was going to be our demise, then they are utterly wrong. And the fact that this feels very much like she's just she's got a whole new level of resolve, not ready to back down. If anything, this drives her not only to go back to Numenor, but to certainly bring reinforcements. And you know, it's pretty interesting going back and viewing the queen's father and his words and the danger that was certainly set. Now that she has seen it firsthand herself and has experienced it, I am going to be curious to see what the people of Numenor and how they certainly react. Maybe the headbutting that definitely goes on with certainly some of their leadership, but also just some of the fears of her father certainly coming to fruition. And it'll be interesting to see when or how long it takes for the Queen and Numenor to even rival up their army and come back, if they even do, right? Like, Galadriel certainly believes that she's certainly there, that she certainly will, and they'll be ready. But who certainly knows? I feel like after watching this episode, any further connections to the Lord of the Rings trilogy I might have thought, I quickly come to find there are a lot more pieces to connect, or events to definitely happen to eventually shape that world of Lord of the Rings, just because of the fact that it is thousands of years away. And again, we get some very interesting decision making by some of the characters that make me think, I really have no idea what's definitely going to be happening here. And I think the Queen's resolve, along with how Elendil feels, and just the ramifications of this mountain exploding in the Southlands, has really just changed the trajectory of everything. And I even really love visually just the last shot of this particular episode too, where you've got Adar along with the orcs just looking at their new land, if you will, calling him Lord of the Southlands, even though we have ourselves a king, or a king in Halbrand, as far as I know, is king of the Southlands. It's fascinating now to kind of see like another leader being born, the orcs lifting him up, and Adar with the sort of course correction of, no, my friends, this is not the Southlands anymore. And just that last shot of the Southlands and then it morphing into Mordor, and you really get to see just the levels of damage and the dead that are certainly all over this land, sort of thing. It's pretty incredible to kind of see Mordor being formed right in front of our eyes on the small screen. So incredible events, incredible stuff here to kick off for what was, I personally thought, an incredible episode. I mean, I cannot wait to kind of see how they go into the final episode here. A couple characters that I do want to focus on and talk with you guys about real quick, because it's really the Mordor aftermath is one of the aspects that we certainly need to discuss here. Talk about a reign of destruction, just the opening sequence of seeing Galadriel wake up to all this level of destruction, the poor horse on fire as well. The only person that she winds up really coming across in here that she recognizes and knows is Theo herself. And I gotta say, I really do like the combination of Theo along with Galadriel in this episode, because it feels very much like two characters that have a lot of grief and blame for certainly what is happening, right? The grief of possibly having lost so many people, and the blame, especially when it comes to Theo, for thinking that, he had the key, he had the sword, he sort of activated it, right? Bringing attention to himself, to the key, to the orcs, and letting it sort of get and sort of letting it get out of hand for him and no longer in his possession. So he definitely is carrying a lot of the brunt of the weight of what happened here. And the same thing can certainly be said when it comes to Galadriel. The fact that she literally forced and talked up a nation of people to come out to help her, and literally the first time that they make landfall, just darkness and evil and destruction upon them that have taken the lives of many of their people already. She's definitely harboring a lot of that grief and blame. So to kind of see them both, there's a part of me that wonders if Galadriel kind of worked out some of her issues just by talking with Theo. It felt like it was very much a case of Galadriel trying to give Theo those reinforcing moments, and it just kind of falling on deaf ears, or the fact that maybe she's even having a hard time convincing herself that things are really going to be all right after everything that they've certainly have had to go through. Tense moment between them when the orcs were almost on top of them. Theo unsheathing his sword against the will of Galadriel, but luckily they wind up sort of making it out of there alive. But I just thought it was a really great combination of those two characters here to really pick each other's brain. And just an honorable mention for Galadriel, she does mention in this episode that she at one point in time was married. I think Theo asks her if she has or knew anybody that's fallen in battle, and not only does she mention her brother, but she also mentions her husband in was it Celeborn, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm pronouncing it right. I do believe we see Celeborn in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, so I'm under the assumption that he's not dead. She does mention him, and she says, apparently she lost him to the war and the orcs, but never saw him again after the war. And look, the one thing I usually say is, if you don't see the body, they may not be dead after all, right? So I am kind of curious if at some point in time Celeborn might return to surprise Galadriel at some point in time coming in this second age. But we'll see how that winds up turning out for her. But again, pretty interesting development and revelation for Galadriel here. Getting the opportunity to see her talk a little bit about her loved ones and letting us in a little bit more on her personal life. But great stuff when it comes to Galadriel in this episode, as she's really trying to help Theo get back to safety and really keep his positivity up despite the reigns of destruction around them. And I do think that maybe even talking with the queen probably lifts up her spirits also, to kind of know that regardless of what's happened, she certainly still has an ally in the queen. I also want to talk about one of my favorite group of buddies in here, good old Elrond along with Prince Durin. This elf and dwarf combination, the combination of their friendship, something that we really haven't seen very much before when it comes to Tolkien's work, with the exception of Legolas along with Gimli. It's one of those rare occasions, I think, when you see elves and dwarves certainly getting along. And I love the love that these two have for each other and their friendship and their bond. I mean, just getting the opportunity to see how Durin expresses the results of his father deciding not to help the elves in here, and seeing Durin get all teary-eyed and stuff. Like, I even love just their farewell that they had towards each other. The idea, I'm trying to say, what is he says, emotional goodbye between friends, not saying goodbye, but I can't remember the term that he used, but it means go towards goodness. I feel like the elves just say everything so eloquently, and I really love the way that their messages are certainly delivered. But this definitely does bring forth a clash between Durin along with his father. Durin clearly going against his father's will, who does not want to help the elves. Very much under the impression, or at least the impression that I got, was he's kind of under the mindset of like, hey, we all meet our day. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all meet our own personal judgment when we will eventually turn to ash and sort of be no more. And if the elves' time is up, then the elves' time is up. I don't want to risk any other dwarves in an attempt to go ahead and help them out in that sense. And so it's something that clearly Durin doesn't necessarily agree with, definitely has some foul words for his own father. But once Durin realizes just how the Mithril heals the darkness and the blight that's upon that leaf that we see, which was a great shot as he like slides the mithril across the table and it lands alongside the leaf and it winds up healing it. It's more than enough to let Durin realize, I gotta help my friend out regardless of what my father says. And for me, it was pretty cool to see them find that pocket of mithril and just the incredible veins of mithril that are shooting all the way out through that mountaintop. And you want to talk about tempting to really want to go ahead and certainly get that for yourself. Durin certainly does everything he can to certainly persuade his father, but his father's just not certainly having it. And so when his father and Durin get into an argument, I do wonder if him pulling off that sheet of metal, I do wonder, like, is that disowning him? Has he taken like his prince name away from him, sort of thing? They clearly are not going to be on good terms. I'm glad he didn't try and like execute his own son or like banish him from the mountain or something like that. But it does go to show you the stubbornness of Durin's father and maybe even the stubbornness of Durin himself here. But I am intrigued with the mindset that Durin's wife now has, of the sense of like, look, your father may push back now, but you also got to remember you're next in line for power. So if you really want that mithril, while it certainly may take a while for us to get it, there is an opportunity at some point in time for us to get it once you become king. I don't know if that's a power play by his wife kind of working behind the scenes a little bit, or just a realization like, hey, you know, our time will certainly come. But I am really fascinated by it, and it does make me wonder what the elves will do now that the king has told them no, right? We've seen them try and do it the friendly way, Durin and Elrond together as friends, but now that they did not accomplish their goal, what will the elves certainly do? Will they try and get it on their own without the dwarves knowing? I have no idea. But when it comes to elves and dwarves, you know, they certainly don't feel like they can trust each other. And it almost feels like it's Durin and Elrond who are really like the middlemen for both of these particular cultures and stuff. And so it's going to be really fascinating to see how that turns out. And if I do have a big question, it probably comes from the king dropping the leaf into the massive tunnel of mithril, and when it actually hits the shadows towards the end, it seems as though a Balrog was in fact created or manifests itself. And it does make me wonder if it's a manifestation of the lore and the flashback sequence that we wind up getting of the elf facing the Balrog on top of the mountain with the life tree sort of in the middle. I wonder when the electricity shocked it, if maybe it engulfed or inspirited the Balrog, and maybe now the Balrog is certainly back. That I don't know, or maybe it's been hiding in the depths of this particular mountain for quite some time, and the leaf is certainly maybe what brought it out. I don't know. The only thing that I do know is that the last Balrog I saw was in Fellowship of the Ring, and I do believe it's also in the same mountain, if I'm not mistaken, when we see our fellowship embark and go through these caves and mountains for the first time. If I'm wrong, though, definitely go ahead and let me know in the comment section box below. But really interesting development here when it comes to the fight for Mithril, if you will. And then last but not least, the Harfoots along with our stranger. You know, I will say the one thing I love about this series is the continued suspense of who Sauron is. I've seen a lot of theories as to who could potentially be Sauron. There's a part of me that also thinks maybe we haven't even seen Sauron yet. There's a part of me also that kind of believes if I had to pick out of any of the characters we've been introduced to, just because Halbrand has made me feel kind of off and feel some type of way, I'll either go the route of Halbrand being Sauron as my prediction, or it's somebody we haven't even seen yet to be revealed as Sauron. That maybe we might get some further clarity, or at least teased in the season finale next week. So we'll see how it winds up turning out. But my theory is Halbrand, just because I still don't care for him as a character. He hasn't really done anything to really impress me or make me feel any sort of attachment to him. So we'll have to see how that turns out. But reason why I bring that up is there are some people that are suggesting that maybe this stranger is in fact Sauron, and I don't know. I'm still under the impression that this stranger is in fact Gandalf. You know, in this episode we see him trying to heal a tree. And I always feel like when it comes to him, there is sort of like this weird balance with his power. Like there's a light and a dark side to it, right? A light side to activate things, bring things to life. But we've also seen the end result of his power kill a bunch of fireflies. And in this particular episode, while his magic does crack open one of the trees and makes one of the branches fall down, within time, healing comes from that particular magic. So I feel like he's got this incredible balance between light and dark. And there's a part of me that wonders if he's here because of the fact that the darkness in something like Sauron is rising, and maybe this particular character is the universe bringing back that balance. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I think it might in fact be Gandalf in here. But it seems as though this particular stranger has people looking for him. So when it comes to the Harfoots, it looks as though some of their caravan is destroyed by the explosion of the mountain. That apparently one of the rocks has reached wherever these Harfoots are at and has just destroyed some of their caravan in here. And so it seems as though this stranger uses that death and destruction to then sort of bring life. And unfortunately, while it certainly takes a while for life to come, in the process of using his magic, he winds up scaring the Harfoots. The Harfoots certainly feel like they're in danger, and it's really the Harfoots leader in was it Sadoc, if I'm not mistaken, Sadoc, that refers to him to like, look, bro, you might have to leave this encampment. All right, you can go down the block if you'd like to. There might be some humans over that ridge. Go ahead and certainly check them out. But it's not really until the Harfoots see these sort of mysterious new characters. I don't know who these three people are. Great intro and like just theme music for them whenever they come in, like I can't even explain it. Like there's a part of me that wonders, is that Saruman or is that somebody else completely that we haven't even been introduced to? But they are certainly hunting down the stranger as well. And when the Harfoots confront them, that's when the rest of their caravan is certainly gone for, right? So it just shows the Harfoots in here that they were really putting the blame on the wrong person, and there are much bigger threats out there in the world than this stranger who clearly is still trying to figure things out for himself and how to use the power that he has, but he's clearly one of the good ones. And so I kind of appreciated the Harfoots putting together a little bit of a fellowship of their own in order to go ahead and hunt for the stranger and at least give him a heads up that, hey, there are some people that are certainly trying to look for you. So our Harfoots who really try and stay away from adventure now find themselves on one, if you will, in an attempt to try and save this stranger of theirs. But really great, solid stuff, man. I continue to really enjoy Nori. I think her name is Buckle. I don't remember what her last name is, like Berryfoot or something like that. I can't remember what her last name is, but I really do enjoy like her commitment to being this guy's friend and continuing to help them, especially when the real life revelations come back that he's just been helping us the entire time. You know what I mean? So really impressive stuff. Another fantastic episode, if you ask me. I keep coming back every Friday night, super pumped to watch a brand new episode of Rings of Power. And again, I think maybe this season or series has even surprised me incredibly, but I'm really loving the way that they're taking Tolkien's work and translating it here here for the small screen. It feels like it's holding true, especially I think when the showrunners have somebody like Tolkien's grandson there to definitely go ahead and help guide them in regard and to hopefully keep that heart of what Tolkien had in here. It's definitely lining up for me, and I'm really loving the characters and the incredible action, and visually it's stunning. So I really appreciate Amazon putting the necessary not only money but love behind this season, because it's definitely showing, and I think viewers can definitely see that. But guys, again, these are just my A+ opinions. At the end of the day, I want to know yours. What did you guys think about episode 7? Let your thoughts be known in the comment section box below, and we'll certainly talk to you then. If you want to join our Discord forum community, if you want to talk to us outside of our YouTube page, there is a link to our Discord in the comments, or excuse me, in the description box below. Definitely go ahead and join us over there, and we'll further continue this conversation. But until next time, do me a big favor, as always, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.